Bishop Robert Barron has rebuked Virginia Senator Tim Kaine after Kaine claimed that rights derive from government and not from God. Roll this up over at phantompulse.com. You can find the link in the description below. So I'll just provide you some context. During a recent Senate hearing, Kaine said this: the notion that rights don't come from laws and don't come from the government, but come from the Creator, that's what the Iranian government believes. It's a theocratic regime that bases its rule on Shia law and targets Sunnis, Bahis, Jews, Christians, and other religious minorities. And they do it because they believe that they understand what natural rights are from their Creator. So the statement that our rights do not come from our laws or our government is extremely troubling. That is what Tim Kaine said. That is not how the country of the United States of America was founded. It is utterly ridiculous, especially given the fact that this guy claims to be a Roman Catholic. And he was rightfully rebuked by Bishop Barron, who responded to his comments saying this: I just feel obligated to speak out against something that I came across today, and I just found it so outrageous and really dangerous to our democracy. And he's not overemphasizing that at all. This is absolutely outrageous, and it is indeed dangerous to our democracy. And we kind of see the fruits of it all around us, right? When our society begins to reject God, it descends into all kinds of degeneracy and hedonism. Anyways, Bishop Barron went on and said it was Senator Tim Kaine at a Senate confirmation hearing, and he was actively contesting the view that our rights come from God and not from the government. And he said that's very dangerous if you claim that our rights don't come from laws or government. But what struck me was he's a senator from Virginia. Virginia was the state of Thomas Jefferson and James Madison, both of whom took it as fundamental to our democracy that our rights don't come from the government, they come from God. So you know the familiar words of Jefferson, right? That we are created equal by God. We are endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. You see, so basic to Jefferson was the fact that rights come first. They're not invented by the government. Rather, government exists, and remember this language from the prologue of the Declaration, to secure these rights. It doesn't invent them. It doesn't ground them. It secures them. It recognizes them as objectively coming from God. And then its whole purpose is to secure them, to serve them. And that is exactly something I've been trying to communicate when it comes to a lot of my commentary, is that the government does indeed have a role to play, and it should be securing our rights. It should be fostering the common good. All of this obviously is included in our founding documents of the United States of America. Anyways, Bishop Barron goes on and says, think too of that familiar word from Jefferson, inalienable. These rights are inalienable. Now, why? Because they come not from the government, but from God. If the government creates our rights, it can take them away. If the government is responsible for our rights, well, then it can change them. You think this never happens? You don't know much about the history of the 20th century. Look at the great totalitarian systems of the 20th century that followed from the denial of God and denial of rights coming from God. And so those rights became eminently inalienable whenever it served the purposes of the government. Obviously, you can look at the Soviet regime and all of the despicable things that they enacted on their own people. Truly, truly horrific what they did over there. And then obviously what the Germans did as well during World War II. Anyways, he goes on and says, it just strikes me as extraordinary that a major American politician wouldn't understand this really elemental part of our system. God help us. I mean that literally. God help us if we say our rights are coming to us from the government. That gives the government indeed godlike power. This is not pious boilerplate, it's basic democracy. We are a nation under God. Lincoln says in the Gettysburg Address that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom. Again, that's not just pious declaration, that's a very important political statement. He concludes saying we are a government that recognizes the objective rights that come from outside of government. Government exists to serve them and secure them. Well, the fact that this rhetoric, and it's popped up elsewhere too in recent years, I spoke out against it a little while ago, is troubling because it's a fruit, I would say, of the increasing marginalization and privatization of religion, if not outright hostility to it. I would definitely say there is a hostility to religion, especially coming from the United States government as an institution. You can see lots of this happening when they're trying to literally ban the 10 Commandments from being publicized in schools. It's absolutely ridiculous. It is contrary to what the founders thought. It is contrary to what it means to be an American, because indeed we are a nation under God. And why would we not display the 10 Commandments if we truly did indeed believe that? And I think obviously there are a lot of people that don't believe that anymore. And again, as I said earlier, that is why we see a lot of that fruit, even as Bishop Barron here is pointing out too, a lot of the hedonism that comes from that, a lot of the absolute immorality, a lot of the just outright evil. Look at how many people have been slaughtered just in Gen Z. I think it's over a third of people were slaughtered in Gen Z due to the evil that is abortion, child sacrifice that our country engages in. It is despicable, and that is clearly a wicked fruit of our distancing ourselves and outright hostility towards God as a society as a whole, as in general, right? Anyways, Bishop Barron then says, so I'm speaking out against this statement that I think is really dangerous, both as a Catholic bishop and as a proud American who is very happy to follow Thomas Jefferson. God bless you. He wasn't the only one to rebuke Kaine. Philosopher Edward Feser, who I really like to cite. I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly. I think it's Feser. Shared his thoughts as well as saying this. Among the many remarkable things about this is that Kaine is not only essentially saying your rights don't come from God, they come from decisions made by people like me, but also seriously thinks this is something people will and should take comfort in. Unfortunately, I think he's probably right. I think a lot of people will indeed take comfort in that. I think they will take comfort in that because they want the government to determine what their rights are. And unfortunately, there are a lot of people in this country that will indeed do that. And that's why we have to actively fight against it on the various battlefronts that have cropped up. Obviously, politics being one of them. I think obviously we see this in our culture as well. I look at the video games, the television shows, the movies, where they are pushing a lot of these ideas as well. And then Francis Joseph Beckwith, a philosophy professor at Baylor, also observed this. Weird that the example he uses undermines his point. If rights come from government and the Iranian government persecutes religious minorities, then according to Kaine, it can't be wrong. But by saying it is indeed wrong, that means that the origin of their rights is not government. So Francis Joseph Beckwith there just kind of pointing out the hypocrisy, the ridiculousness, the lack of reason from Tim Kaine. And this is something that Dr. Edward Feser has talked about as well. People who are woke adherents, Tim Kaine, I think, is obviously one of those. They lack reason, and that is why you cannot try to reason with these people. A lot of it does indeed have to be done through the state, and the state has to come down hard on this ideology, and you can't just kind of reason your way out of it. You can't just have Bishop Barron out here rebuking Tim Kaine. You actually have to use the institution of the state to come down and expunge this ideology out of existence. And hopefully, I do feel like there is a significant movement that is coming to realize the truth of this matter, and we will work to expunge it out of existence and take back our country and get it back to where God is indeed first. And I do appreciate that we have leaders now that are willing to say that in President Donald Trump, in Vice President J.D. Vance. But let me know what you guys make of this. Let me know in the comments below. Remember to always be charitable, especially to each other, and to always, always speak the truth.
Why would you be afraid of the people? Why are you not afraid of God instead of man?